An Excel formula is a way for you to perform mathematical calculations on the data that's contained in your spreadsheet. You might want to say something like, what's the sum or total of cell A1 and cell B1? Then Excel will use the formula and display the answer. Of course, you can't ask the question just like that. You have to create a formula that asks the question in a way that Excel can understand it. We're going to go ahead and jump into creating a formula, and I'll just explain each different part as we go along. You can see here that my spreadsheet contains some categories and some totals. Now down below I have some additional categories, and what these are is we need to combine some of the data that's in this range and get some totals for down here. For example, I have materials and supplies. Up here I have materials listed separately and supplies listed separately. Well, I want to combine those two. So what I'm going to do is first select the cell that you want the formula in. Then we'll go ahead and press the equal sign, and the equal sign tells Excel that we are starting a formula. So anytime you're typing a formula, you have to start it with the equal sign. Now, since I'm going to be adding some cells together, I'm going to use a function called sum. So the next thing that I want to put is sum. And now what do we sum, or what are we going to total? How do we tell Excel what specific cells we want to use this function on? Well, the first thing with most functions is we need to have an opening parenthesis. And you'll notice that when I do that, all of a sudden this tooltip pops down here, and it's used to remind me of what the arguments or parameters are that are going to be sent to that function. A parameter is a part of a function that you want the function to behave or act upon. So in this function it's called sum, and what sum does is add one or more cells together to give you a total of those cells. So all the cells that you're wanting to add would be considered arguments or parameters. So the first cell that we want to add is cell C3. Now I'm going to show you several methods that you can input cell references into your formulas, but the first one that we're going to use is just to go ahead and type the cell directly. So I'll do C3, and then you'll notice that as soon as I complete the cell reference, it's now highlighted. Now to separate each individual cell, you'll notice here in my tooltip that I have the word number 1 and then a comma. And then this number 2 is in brackets. What that means is number 2 is optional. What the comma means is that's how I separate each individual parameter. So I'm going to type a comma, and now you'll notice that the focus has shifted over to number 2, and it's in brackets still, and there's another comma and a number 3 in brackets. What this is telling you is that number 2 is optional and number 3 is optional. That means you don't have to do the number 3. That's why it's in brackets, but it's putting it there just to remind you that you can. And then the comma with the dot dot dot, that lets you know that it's going to continue on. So now the next thing that I want to enter is the second cell that I want to reference, which is C4. Now, since my cursor is in the position to directly type that number, watch this, I can click on it. The dash selection goes around the box, and it has entered the cell reference into my formula for me. Now, since these are the only 2 cells that I want to get the total on, I can use a closing parenthesis in order to tell Excel that I'm done with that function. Okay, so now my tooltip disappears. I've completed my function, and as soon as I hit enter, what's going to happen is the sum function is going to run on those 2 cells, and it's going to add their total together and display it in this box. Okay, so what has occurred is cell C3 and C4 have been sent to the sum function, and the sum function totals cells that are sent to it. So now I have a total of those 2 cells. And if we click back in C11, you'll notice that the formula is displayed in the formula bar, but the actual result of the formula is displayed in the cell. And a result is what the formula or function returns. Okay, so the sum function takes these parameters, adds them together, and then it returns a total.